Good day mga HObbiters. Today we're going to solve quadratic equations by the use of factoring method. Okay, so first we have the common monomial factor. Second, we have the difference of two squares. And third, we have factoring by trial and error. First, let us have the common monomial factor. So example, we have x squared minus 21x equals 0. Now, as you can see, you have here x squared and 21x. Then, what's the common of x squared and 21x? Yes, the common is x. So you're going to factor it out like that. Then what is left inside the parenthesis, we have x minus 21. Because if we're going to multiply it back, that is x times x, that would be x squared. Then x times negative 21, then that would be negative 21x. Next, using the zero product property, we can separate the two factors into x equals 0 and the other one is x minus 21 equals 0. Then solve. So the first is x equals 0. Then second would be x minus 21 equals 0. Then transpose negative 21 to the right, then it becomes 21. So our solutions for this quadratic equation are 0 and 21. Let's solve the second example, still on the common monomial factor. So suppose we have 2x squared plus 14x equals 0. So first we're going to find the common factor of 2x squared and 14x. And that is 2x, right? Because you can exactly divide 14 by 2. So you have 2 as the common factor of 2 and 14. Then for x squared, that would be, for x squared and x, that would be x. So the common monomial factor is 2x. Then you have x plus 7. Then using the zero product property, you can separate the two factors, then solve each. So you have here 2x equals 0. So the value of your x is equal to 0. The second is x plus 7 equals 0. Then transpose positive 7 to the right, that becomes negative 7. So the solutions would be negative 7 and 0. Let's try another example still on. Okay, let's proceed now to the difference of two squares. Okay, suppose you have x squared minus 36 equals 0. So it's a difference of two squares because of the minus sign. Then two squares because you have the square root of x squared, square root of 36 is 6. So they are perfect numbers. Okay, so that's why it's called difference of two squares. So the factors of quadratic expression, if they are written in difference of two squares, would be same factors. The difference is only the sign, so the other factor takes positive and the other factor takes negative. So you have here x plus 6 and x minus 6. So let's solve first the first factor. We're going to equate this one to 0. So you have x plus 6 equals 0. Then solve for x. Then x is negative 6. Second factor would be x minus 6 equals 0. Then you solve for the value of x. So since it's negative, you transpose it, it becomes positive. So the second value of x would be positive x. So the solutions for this given equation are negative 6 and positive 6. Let's try another example, still on the difference of two squares. So you have 4x squared minus 100 equals 0. So as you can see, 4 is a perfect number, 100 also a perfect number. So this is under difference of two squares. Okay, so what are the factors of 4x squared minus 100? So remember that the square root of 4 is 2, the square root of x squared is x, right? And the square root of 100 is 10. So you have 2x plus 10, then the other factor would be 2x minus 10. So actually they are the same. The difference is only the sign. So the first factor takes the positive sign, the second factor takes the negative sign. Then solve each factor. So you have 2x plus 10 equals 0. So we're going to equate each factor to 0. So 2x plus 10 equals 0. Then transpose positive 10 to the right, so it becomes negative 10. Then solve for x. The result is negative 5. Because you divided negative 10 by 2. So negative 10 divided by 2, the result is negative 5. Okay, let's solve the second factor, which is 2x minus 10. And we're going to equate this one to 0. So you have 2x minus 10 equals 0. Then transpose negative 10 to the right. So you have 2x equals 10. Then divide both sides by 2. So the value of x is positive 5. Okay, so the solutions for this quadratic equation are negative 5 and positive 5. Okay, let's have this one. Still on the difference of two squares. Example, you have 25x squared minus 120 equals 1. So as you can see, you have two constants. You have negative 120 and positive 1, the right. So all you have to do is to bring this positive 1 to the left, so it becomes negative 1. Change its sign. So the given equation becomes 25x squared minus 120 minus 1 equals 0. Then add negative 120 and negative 1, so you have negative 121. So the equation now becomes 25x squared minus 121 equals 0. So as you can see, 25 is a perfect number, also 121 is a perfect number. So we can use and how to factor difference of two squares by writing 5x plus 11 times 5x minus 11, because the square root of 25 is 5, then the square root of 121 is 11. So let's take the first factor and equate this one into 0. So you have 5x plus 11 equals 0. Then transpose positive 11 to the right, so it becomes negative 11. So solving for the value of x, you have negative 11 over 5 because we divided both sides by positive 5. Okay, let's have the second factor, equate this one into 0. So you have 5x minus 11 equals 0. Then transpose negative 11 to the right, becomes positive 11. Then divide both sides by 5. Then the value of x would be positive 11 over 5. So the solutions for this equation are negative 11 over 5 and positive 11 over 5. Okay, let's proceed to the third type of factoring, which is factoring by trial and error. So example, you have x squared plus 4x plus 3 equals 0. So first you have to think what are the possible factors of 3. Then if we're going to add these factors or subtract these numbers, then the resulting number would be the middle term. Okay? So example for 3, the possible factors are 3 and 1 only. Alright? Now if you're going to subtract 3 and 1, so the result would be 2, and that's not the number in the middle term, the coefficient of the middle term. If we're going to add 3 and 1, so the result would be 4, and that is the coefficient of the middle term. So we're going to use factors x plus 3 and x plus 1. Then both are positive since we don't have negative sign in the given equation. So our equation becomes x plus 3 times x plus 1 equals 0. So take the first factor, x plus 3, then equate this one into 0. So that would be x plus 3 equals 0. Then transpose positively to the right becomes negative 3. So the value of x here is negative 3. And second, x plus 1 equals 0, then transpose positive 1 to the right becomes negative 1. Okay, so the solution here is x equals negative 1. So the solutions for this quadratic equation are negative 3 and negative 1. Let's have another example under factoring by trial and error method. So how about if we have x squared minus x minus 42 equal 0. Okay, so what are the possible factors of 42? Then if we're going to add or subtract those numbers, the resulting number will be the coefficient of the middle term, which is negative 1. So for 42, we can use 6 and 7, right? So if we're going to add 6 and 7, then that would be 13, and that's not the coefficient of the middle term. But if we're going to subtract 6 minus 7, then that would be negative 1, and that is the coefficient of the middle term. So we're going to use now x plus 6 times x minus 7. Why x plus 6 and x minus 7? We have used positive 6 and negative 7 because if we are going to subtract 6 minus 7, then the result would be negative 1. So 7 must take negative sign. So the first factor, x plus 6, then equate this one to 0. So you have x plus 6 equals 0. Then solve for x, the result is negative 6. The second factor, x minus 7, then equate this one to 0. So the value of x is positive 7, transpose negative 7 to the right. So the solutions for this given quadratic equation are negative 7 and positive 7. Okay, let's have this another example still under trial and error method. So the given is 2x squared minus 3x minus 2 equals 0. So first look for the factors. So we have the factors 2x plus 1 and x minus 2. Why? Because if we're going to multiply 2x and x, the result would be 2x squared, right? Then if we're going to multiply 2x and negative 2, the result is negative 4. Then you still have 1 times x The result is x. So since they are like terms, then add negative 4x plus x. The result is negative 3x, and that is the middle term of the given equation. So that's why we have these factors. Okay, so set the first factor into 0. So you have 2x plus 1 equals 0. Then solve for the value of x, that is 2x equals negative 1. Then divide both sides by 2. So the value of x is negative 1/2. Second factor, x minus 2, then equate this one to 0. So the value of x is positive 2. So the solutions of this quadratic equation are negative 1/2 and positive 2. Okay, let us try the following quadratic equation, then find the solutions of this given quadratic equation by applying common monomial factor, difference of two squares, and also factoring by trial and error method. Okay, let's try the first one. So x squared minus 3x equals 0. So what are the solutions of this? Okay, so we have 0 and 3. Why? Because the factor would be x and x minus 3, right? So equate each factor into 0. So you have 0 and 3 as the solutions. Second is x squared plus 2x equals x. Okay, first you have to transpose x to the left side, so it becomes x squared plus 2x minus x equals 0. Then combine like terms, so it becomes x squared plus x, right? So then factor, so x times x plus 1. So the solution would be 0 and negative 1. Okay, next is x squared minus 10 equals 0. So this is under difference two squares. So just get the square root of 100, which is 10. So the solutions would be negative 10 and positive 10. Second, 36x squared minus 25 equals 0, still under difference of two squares. So what's the square root of 25? That's 5. The square root of 36, that's 6. So the solutions would be negative 5 over 6 and 5 over 6. Second, using trial and error method, you have x squared plus 5x minus 6 equals 0. So the factors for 6 we're going to use are what? Okay, so 6 and 1. So add 6 plus 1, 7. We're looking for 5, so we're going to subtract 6 minus 1. So that would be x plus 6 and x minus 1. So the solution would be negative 6 and positive 1. So another example, you have x squared minus 3x minus 18 equals 0. So the factors of 18 are 6 and 3. Then since we're looking for negative 3, so we have to subtract 6 and 3. And that is negative. So we have to use x minus 6 times x plus 3. So the solutions would be negative 3 and positive 16. Next, 3x squared plus 7x plus 2 equals 0. So the solutions are negative 2, negative 1/3. Okay, so that's all for today. So we have discussed the basic method in solving quadratic equation by the use of factoring. So watch out for our next tutorial video about still an quadratic equation. I think for another method on how to find the solutions of quadratic equation, by that time it would be using completing the square or using the quadratic formula. Thank you.